Morning, and welcome to the third part of our special series of Sunday services entitled From Free Will to Freedom. And if you've stayed abreast of these subjects or these different Sundays, you'll know that the first two, we were pretty ambitious. We covered the absolute, truth, bravery, love, and mantra. I would say that was a pretty good overreach, you could say, of 2 hours of information. But of course, the expectation is that you then would go up from there and do more studies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But today, we're going to tackle an even more important for us subject, and that is the third freedom, which is service, and the first blessing, which is blessed are they who work for peace. And this is so important. This is really the meat of King Yoga. It's the most important, really, aspect of the Aetherius Society, because that's what we do all the time in the Aetherius Society, is service. And it really should be the most important thing for the whole world, but it isn't really at this point. And when you think about it, from free will to freedom, service is what takes you from free will, which is selfishness, to freedom, which is the result of selflessness. And all that comes about through focusing and performing great service in these days. Now, another thing that I think is pretty apparent is that service is not the most alluring or the most exciting metaphysical topic that one could go out on. We get many people coming into the Aetherius Society with an interest in studying more about UFOs. And of course, we have quite a bit of information on UFOs in the Aetherius Society. But we more focus on what the controllers of the UFOs are saying to our world, and it really is, in essence, give service. We have another large group of interested people finding the Aetherius Society through wanting to evolve and to improve themselves and go forward, especially through the control and the harnessing of that great mystical power, Kundalini. And this, of course, is a very exciting and interesting concept and topic of study. And we also are told in the Aetherius Society that, in fact, the control and raising of this power of Kundalini is the main lesson that we need to learn on Earth today. However, we're also told that at this time on Earth, the focus on service is more important. And of course, we have, we have lots of practices, very potent practices, that will really start this raising of the Kundalini. But it's service that is most important. And the reason is that if you look around the world at the civilization, you'll realize that most people don't even know what the Kundalini is, let alone that that's the most important thing to learn on Earth. And so it's a very unlevel playing field, if you want to use that analogy. And the most important thing now is to do as much as we can through service to level this playing field so that more and more people are able to know about the Kundalini and to start to harness it and raise it, which will, then, of course, will allow everyone to give greater service. Now, Mara Sector 6 in the Third Freedom tells us that there are many ways to serve on Earth. And of course there are, because there's so much suffering, so much ignorance on earth, and there's many, many ways to serve. But the founder of the Aetherius Society, His Eminence Sir George King, was such a genius at power manipulation, spiritual power manipulation. And consequently, he taught us in the Aetherius Society to be spiritual commandos that can more and more effectively attract this great spiritual power of Almighty God and send it out to a world that is in tremendous need for this power. Because Dr. King also said that the only real shortage on earth is a spiritual energy shortage. And so that's what we really focus on in the Aetherius Society. And that's why that today the practice that we're going to be teaching is on prayer. Because prayer really is the most potent way that we can attract this great spiritual power of Almighty God and send it out to where it is most needed. Now, I think everyone knows that there's several different ways of giving prayer, ways of praying. There's several different strengths or levels of prayer. And so I'd like to give one short story of my own, which probably many may have heard this before, but it is a story of a very lower type of prayer, shall we say, more of a personal prayer. And this took place back in 1975 when I was taking a break from high school before I went to college. And I was a very firm agnostic, didn't believe in prayer at all, didn't really know if I believed in God or not. I was into philosophy, into UFOs, and I was traveling for about 9 months in Central America. But my girlfriend from high school, she was on the verge of being a born-again Christian. She was really into Christianity. So that caused some issues in the relationship, you might imagine. But before she went off to college and I went down to Central America, she gave me this New Testament and implored me to read it. And it's the last thing I really wanted to read, frankly, at the time. I was having a good time traveling Central America. But I was reading it, and I found myself in the capital of Costa Rica, called San Jose, and I was on my way to visit an uncle of a friend of my dad, who had a large finca in southern Costa Rica, a 250-acre rainforest reserve, really, for birds, because he was a bird expert. But it wasn't well marked on the maps. There was no GPS. There was no cell phones, and I didn't speak Spanish too well. So it was a long, arduous trip. I kept stopping and asking for directions, etc., in my broken Spanish. And I was getting down further and further, and the sun was starting to go down, and I hadn't checked my gasoline status, which was unlike me. And so I looked down at the gasoline gauge, pinned on empty, just there was zero gas registering on the gauge. I said, this is not good, because it's not a very safe place in Central America, especially for an 18-year-old gringo. I guess it was 18. And so I was getting kind of worried about this, and I had remembered reading recently, I think Matthew 21, I think it is, around there, where the Master Jesus tells you how to pray. He says, if you pray with absolute faith that the prayer will work, it will work. Of course, I'd read that theoretically, and I said, oh, that's interesting. But then here I really needed something, so I said, oh, I'll try this prayer. And so I gripped the wheel, and I was just praying as best I could, blocking out any logical thoughts that there's no way it's going to help, to try and focus on, yes, I have faith, it's going to work. And I'm going up this hill, and the gas is gone. I'm just kind of sputtering, and I just hit the crest. Hadn't seen any. There was no towns for miles and miles and miles before, And I get to the crest, and I look out and see absolutely nothing, except at the bottom of this hill, there's this lone gas station sitting right there. I said, wow. And so I just coast down this gentle hill, and I just roll in front of one of the pumps and just stop, no brakes, just roll to a stop right there. Just blew me away. And, even my logic, there's no way I could think that was coincidence. So it made a huge impression on me. And interestingly, that would have been in early 1975, and by January 1976, I'd gone to college, changed to a different college, and found myself in a group that was teaching the 9 freedoms. Just less than a year later. So this prayer had this tremendous effect on me. Not that it moved me towards belief in God necessarily at that point. It took me a while. But it really opened me up to the existence of other things, other forces. And I think prayer can do that. And like I say, this is a very low level of prayer. It's a pretty selfish prayer. Just please give me gas. I mean, it's pretty selfish. But it worked, and it had a big effect. And later today, we're going to learn a much more potent type of prayer, and this will be given by our Master himself, and it is the secret of his prayer. And he teaches us how to do his type of inspirational prayer, and that is something well worth studying. And at that, I will now turn the podium over to Reverend Ashima, who will start the service proper. Thank you.
Greetings. I think it's certainly interesting to hear some of these early experiences of our bishop who turned from an agnostic into a believer in God. And as we probably have all heard that, ask and you shall receive. So let's now take a moment and go within to prepare ourselves and ask God, the absolute Brahma, or this force, whatever you want to call it, to help guide you so that you can receive more of this wisdom that will be presented in the service today. And let's also remember that the more reverence you show towards a teaching or a practice, the more you will be able to receive from it. So let's now sit up straight, slow our breathing, and go within. Shoulders relaxed. And take your focus to center on the here and now. And let's now take our mind upwards into the ethers above. And see their beautiful pink radiance. Guide us down to the head and brain. Down the spine at the back. Wrap it around the base of the spine. Up the front of the body. Till it reaches the top of the head. Then repeat this once more. Guide this pink flame down the spine at the back, around the base of the spine, up the front of the body, till it reaches the top of the head once again. And as a balance to this, request most humbly from the Mother Earth for her sacred violet flame of transmutation and protection to course upwards through your body and aura, all the way up, as far as you can visualize it. See yourself bathed and cleansed in this violet flame. Then let's now take our mind upwards into the ethers above and see the brilliant white light gathers down to the head and brain, and let it amalgamate with every cell within the brain. Then guide it down the neck and shoulders and into the heart center. Feel the heart center vibrate with this energy. Then let's now detach from this visualization and slowly open your eyes. And I'd just like to let you know that we will shortly share with you some insights from this most illuminating transmission, the third freedom on service, from the great karmic lord Mars Sector 6. And I will start off by reading a short extract, and then after that, you will get to hear this great karmic lord deliver this transmission through the yogic mediumship of Dr. George King. And when we play for you this recording, be sure to tune into the power and the essence of this great cosmic master. So I would invite you to close your eyes and focus on the words of this great karmic lord. Mars Sector 6. Freedom from selfishness is service. In these days, there is much service which is vitally important to Terra. There are few servers. Service is a culmination of experiences which denote the server as being on the ladder of evolution, firmly on this ladder. Those who have a yearning desire to serve, and indeed are doing so, are those who have slain selfishness, are those who are gradually overcoming their lower materialistic aspects, are those who are sometimes slowly, but nevertheless surely, advancing towards enlightenment. In these days upon Terra, it is selfless action called service, which will count in your initiations of tomorrow. Your service to others will be known, and you will judge yourselves accordingly. And let's remember that, as our bishop pointed out earlier, that service is very important nowadays. It's even more important than learning to raise Kundalini. But the good thing is, we learn from this great karmic Lord Mars Sector 6 that by giving service, Kundalini will rise in a natural, unforced fashion. So this illustrates another reason why it is so important to focus on giving service to help raise everybody at the same time. So we will now play for you the transmission extract where you will get to tune into Mars Sector 6.
What is service but a love in practical action? Service is the result of applied spiritual logic. It is the lasting flower in the garden of enlightenment. It is the jewel in the rock of attainment. There are many ways to serve upon Terra. Look around you and see. Ignorance, suffering, want, hate, greed, selfishness, war, murder, robbery, violence in every form. See how people, the young ones, are being deluded. There are many ways, indeed, to serve. By your service, you can help to heal those who are sick, and you should. By your service, you can help to give encouragement and strength to those who are depressed and weak, and you should do this. By your service, you can throw a dazzling beam of scintillating, white, vibrant energy into the darkness of a suffering world and raise it.
And in this brief extract, we just listened to Mars Sector 6 highlights for us how service and love go hand in hand, and how we can use this love energy to bring light to our world by throwing out this dazzling beam of white light to bring healing, upliftment, and light into our dark and needy world. And having said that, we will shortly join in to do just that by sending out a potent beam of white light to the peace workers. Service, as we have mentioned a few times now, is very much needed in our world. And the peace workers are doing very essential work, and they can use all the help that they can need from us. Peace workers include all those who are serving in our community, the doctors and nurses during the coronavirus pandemic, and another world crises, and the policemen, firefighters, as well as light workers who are sending out light through their prayers. And I think all of us here are familiar with that. So let's now open our hearts and minds and souls to join in with the Master Jesus as he delivers the first blessing through Dr. George King. And we will just be joining in a part of this blessing. But let's focus on sending out this white light to the focal point of this blessing. Please raise your hands and visualize white light coming out from your palm centers as well as your heart center.
Blessed are they who work for peace. In these times of unrest in your world, the workers for peace are indeed thrice blessed, for these ones, by their toil, sacrifice their own bliss. By their interest in the suffering of their brothers, they sacrifice their peace. Blessed are these ones. At this time, their handiworks will increase, and their monuments are built upon sure foundations will last, so that the future generations may look in reverence upon these. Thrice blessed in the now and by now are these ones, for they have demonstrated unselfishness in the most definite and holy way.
Please lower your hands and adopt the mudra for mantra if you have received it. And join me in the recitation of the holy words once, again, if you have been initiated into this. Otherwise, just leave your palm upwards on the knees and just let the energy flow through you. And I will now invite our bishop to come again to the lectern to share with us further about prayer.
Thank you, Reverend. Now, we get the opportunity to really understand from our spiritual master how he prayed. And I think that's a tremendous opportunity for us to hear from an avatar himself how he got himself into a state to let the energy flow through him to perform virtual miracles. So we're going to kind of ramp up slowly, and we're going to listen to two back-to-back extracts from an address that Dr. King gave in 1980 entitled The Importance of Dynamic Prayer. And this will kind of remind us of how important prayer is. So let's listen to that. It's about 4 minutes long, and these are two extracts kind of back-to-back. So let's just close our eyes for just a moment in preparation. And think about the great compassion of Dr. King to leave his spiritual home, to come to earth, to help us. Let's listen to these words of wisdom, especially for us, the peace workers.
I believe, and I'll repeat it for emphasis, that you are, for the most part, capable of dynamic prayer in one degree or another. The question is, though, are you willing to expend sufficient effort to perform dynamic prayer? That's the question, not whether you can pray dynamically. And that's the question you should ask yourself, and that's the question you should answer, and the answer is in the affirmative. It is in the affirmative. But it's not easy. It demands concentration. It demands belief. It demands great respect for God. It demands inner knowledge, but most of all, above all these even, except the respect for God, is it demands a burning desire above everything else to bring about certain predetermined results. And if you have this, it doesn't matter almost who you are, then you can pray in not only a dynamic fashion, but a very, very effective fashion. Your output, from an energy point of view, is coming into the stage of the adept, just for that time. Dynamic prayer, I think, is a wonderful expression. It's a song of the soul. And the soul wants to sing. It wants to express light all around itself. It wants to go forward and help and raise. It wants even to raise the dead, which under certain conditions can be done. Whether it should be done or not is a different thing, but it can be done. You must allow it to do this. You must allow this to happen, this beautiful manifestation to take place, this great surge of energy to fill your mind and aura to such an extent that the bread you cast upon the waters is indeed great and is indeed beautiful. And the more effort you expend in this respect, the more sure the result has to be. This is the law. You cannot, if you want an impossible thing, it's this. You cannot send out prayers for mankind in a dynamic fashion without having certain results. It's impossible. It can't be done. The results must come. Sooner or later, they must come. God, if I could only get that over to these silly little aliens on this planet, we'd have 3.5 billion prayers this very morning. And before this afternoon, the world would be changed completely.
I think that extract really gets across his knowledge of how powerful prayer is, and in a way how frustrating it is for him to see so much suffering around the world that could be, in his way of thinking, very easily solved if people would just pray. Such a simple solution to what we think is such a complicated problem. And you imagine how incredibly frustrating it must be for all avatars, anyone coming from another world, to see so much suffering needlessly. And so you can see our master who just absolutely knew how potent prayer is. It's also a nice little kind of sideline quips that he puts in there, like most of us are kind of wondering about the possibility of raising the dead. He's all past that. Of course you can do that, but should you? Different way of thinking, really, isn't it? But I hope that this has re-inspired us to do more prayer and learn to do our prayers better, and to realize that there's such a desperate need out there that even though we may not see it, in front of us, but it's there. And it's so important for us to live up to our responsibility to know of this tremendous avatar, and to help push this wedge of light into a very suffering world. And prayer is something we can do all the time, whenever we want to. And so I'm not going to play over this really brilliant and simple description of how Dr. King does inspirational prayer. Now, he does separate. There's two kinds. There's set prayers that he talks about, which are the 12 blessings, those kind of prayers that are pre-written, and then you just throw yourself into those prayers, which is great. But he's talking about inspirational prayers, where you decide where you send that energy, where it's needed. And so let's listen to Dr. King. This is I've edited it pretty severely. It's a 30-minute address down to 17 minutes. But I think I pulled out the real best bits, most important bits that will teach us how to use this technique of prayer. So it's 17 minutes, and just realize how incredibly fortunate we are to be hearing such a one as Dr. King give us this technique.
First of all, what is prayer? In order to understand prayer properly, we just must have a little look at what we are. We are electronically driven robots which we drive through life in order to gain experience. Robots because we control them, or should do. And when the control of our mental faculties and our physical attributes is in the hands of another, then we become total robots. But while we have control ourselves, the main aspect of us, the soul aspect of us, the spiritual aspect of us, while we have that control, then we are gaining experience in a very potent way. And we are learning the law, the divine law, referred to by the Buddhists as karma. Prayer is a result of the explosion of forces on the psycho-spiritual and mento-psychic planes. And it starts off on the mento-psychic planes. And then the prayer is risen to the higher planes. Put it another way, outside of you is a sea of mind. You have a receiving set. You can tune that receiving set into the sea of mind. And the more sensitive the receiving set is, the higher the aspects of mind you are able to receive and translate. The result of this reception and translation may be called understanding. And that is it, and that is occult truth. And if you regard yourself in this light, you will find that you can do more than you do now. you will find that you are more successful than you are now, especially at prayer. Then one also has to realize what else you live in a sea of. You live in a sea of free-flowing energy, which is not the mind energy I speak of, but another energy in which mind energy exists. So we have an energy field and a mind field. And we stand with our electronically driven little robot bodies in these fields. If we think a collection of thoughts specially designed either by someone else or ourselves in order to invoke energy, if the thoughts are expressed in the right way, we will invoke energy. We will be able to tune our receiving set into the higher aspects of mind, number one, and energy, number two. That is prayer. Traditionally, man, with his previous experience on this planet, has a traditional idea of certain phrases which make up prayer to him. For instance, you would not start your prayer off by saying the weather is very cold, or the weather is very hot, or I don't feel well, or I feel marvelous. You would say, dear God, etc. And immediately you do that, traditionally something is brought about within you. And you should be able to go on from there. Now, basically, at this time, I'm talking about inspirational prayer rather than set prayer. A set prayer is very good. It gives you guidance, it gives you direction, and it gives you strict discipline. With the use of set prayers, we have in the Aetherius Society performed miracles, open to any inspection with our Operation Prayer Power. But this now is inspirational prayer. You, as an individual, wish to send power or energy to a dying relative, or to people stricken by earthquake, famine, or flood. You as an individual wish to do this. You wish to try to stop a war, for instance. Now, the way I have always done it is this. And this is where honesty is essential. And I mean real, true, deep honesty. One has to be diabolically honest with themselves and with others. One must be honest. If you do it in the way that I have done prayer for the past 50-odd years, that's half a century of experience. Very well. So what I do is this. I know these things. I know that there is energy there. I know that I should be, I, the spiritual I, the real I, the Om Tat Sat within me should be the controller. And I state quite definitely that the spiritual aspect is controlling the mind, all aspects of it, and the body. Then I confess, and this is the great secret. I then confess. Between myself and God, or Brahma, call the deity what you wish, there is a period of confession. And this is where one has to be devastatingly honest. I really do confess. Not all my petty sins, the prayer would last forever, but the major ones. And also, I go further than that. I tend to bring myself down to a very low level with this confession by thoughts expressed out loud, nothing like doing it out loud, thoughts expressed out loud that I am indeed a miserable, sinning, useless little mote, etc., 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 etc. And you can fill the words in for yourself. You should know them. Any spark of honesty within you will tell you what's wrong with yourself. And you should be capable of self-analysis. Now, after this, one then, or at least I then, come forward and say to Brahma or God, whatever it may be, or whatever you call it, it's all the same thing, you know. Even so, I now at this time ask you, in your great compassion and mercy, to allow me to be a channel through which energy can flow to so-and-so or to such and such. You know, this isn't, will you help me with energy? And the only time it is, will you help me with energy, is, will you help me with energy so that I may be inspired, so that I can do more for the world. This is unselfish prayer. I don't believe in selfish prayer. And I've never or seldom performed a selfish prayer since I was a small child. And then you are ready for the flow. And then you again ask, send forth your power, send forth your power, let the power flow, and you become really dynamic, attuned to one thing only, not two. There's nothing else in life except that power flowing through you to your predetermined destination. And that's all there is, and that's all there should be. And the whole of your concentration should be thrown down onto that one gleaming spot in front of you. And then you will feel the energy physically. Absolutely, physically, and I mean absolutely physically. As far as I'm concerned, it feels cold. I can feel it coming through the spine, because the spine is one of your main antennas, coming through the spine in tremendous pulses, and I can feel it physically, not only mentally, but physically. And if you are psychic at all, and of course naturally in such prayer you have your hands out, not like this, please, but your hands out like that, palms facing out, so that the whole of the channel, your robot-like body acts as a channel for these energies to be brought onto a usable level. You can see the energy coursing from you. It not only comes out the palms of your hands, but it travels out through other psychic centers as well, depending on the energy plane that you have contacted. But the whole secret of success, ladies and gentlemen, is knowing what you are, in what you exist, what you want to do with your prayer, where you want to guide it, and confessing to your deity. Confession is good for the soul. That does not come from the Roman Catholic Church. Agni Yoga has been practiced for thousands of years before Christianity came to this earth. And that is an aspect of Agni Yoga. Only you are creating your own fire of purification. Instead of letting other people create the fires of purification for you, you're creating your own fire of purification. You're burning up your own dross. And you are becoming an honest person. An honest person. A purer channel. And the purer channel you become, the higher aspect of energy which can flow through you. But don't forget the absolutely, completely honest confession to God, just between you and God. And make it diabolically honest. Devastatingly honest. Strip yourself down till you have nothing left. Then, when the energy flows, as it will if you do it right, you will be built up again a better person. You will be rejuvenated by the very energies that you invoked. And from nothing, it's as though you're built up again into something better. And that's the whole secret of it.
Really powerful, isn't it? So it's it's a very simple explanation, but I think you can see is a lot in it, and it can be difficult. And so we're going to try and go through it together, which of course isn't really what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do it alone, of course. So rather than doing it out loud, we're going to just kind of do it as a moving the mouth but no sound, like a whisper, right? Silent whisper. And we're also going to, if there are any questions online or here about the technique, either before we do it or after we do it, I'll do the best I can to answer any questions. But before we get into it, I want to just want to say a few words. You know, we are, as we've been told before, we're God trainees. We're trained to be gods, and so we have to decide what to do with our time and our energy, and that's how we build our karma. That's how we learn, and as we go further and further, we start to realize that we really do have power. We really can heal people. We really can make a difference in our world. And so then it gets to be a question of what do you do with your power and your time and your energy? And all of us have thousands of questions every day of what to do. How much sleep do we get? Do we watch TV or not? How long to watch TV? Do we have to do grocery shopping and this, and do we do it quickly or efficiently, whatever? We can spend 15 minutes looking at the news or 4 hours just diving into the internet and finding out every nuance of the left or the right or the COVID or the not COVID or the mask or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or we can do some practices. And then what practices? Breathing, mantra, set prayer, inspirational prayer. If we do inspirational prayer, where to? Healing, who? The world? I mean, there's all kinds of thoughts and questions that come up. And this is something that we all have to grapple with, but it's something that to take it very, very seriously. And I'll give you something kind of struck me one time. I was listening to an address by Dr. King, and he said that he's giving an example of inspirational prayer, and he was doing prayer for an hour, and he was flying around his bedsit in London. I think maybe people have heard this. But the thing that struck me was that he was spending an hour, probably many, many times, doing prayers for the Korean conflict. And here's someone who, at that point, would have been in the early 50s. He was already able to do amazing things. But he chose to spend a significant amount of his time doing inspirational prayer for the Korean conflict. Could have done anything else, far more than we could do. But he chose to do that. And I think there's a little bit of a lesson there for us to try and navigate how we spend our time, how we spend our practices. And it's also good to kind of remember the little statement he said, where when we're praying, we're almost up to the energy output of an adept. And he said that also in regards to when you're attending Operation Prayer Power. And so, these are significant little points to kind of cling on to. Again, you've got the choice of TV, internet research, or energy output of an adept. We want to try and learn to make those decisions in an appropriate manner. It's up to you. So it's, but this tool that he's giving us is it's an amazing tool, and it helps us be so much more effective. But it does take practice. Does take practice, and it's like with the set prayer, we learn to kind of really feel our heart center, and then expand that and send the energy out. With inspirational prayer, I find you almost need to start with emotion, because you're breaking yourself down with this what do you call it? Confession. You're breaking yourself down, and it should get emotional. And you heard him bring this great, cosmic master down to a moat. Crazy. And so we have to do the same thing. And it takes emotion to do that. Can't be intellectual. That's why I said out loud. because you can invoke more emotion out loud. And then you get to this like low spot, and then you have the energy go through. So that's the technique we're going to try and learn, and it's difficult. I encourage you to, of course, to practice it. Now we're going to choose, or I'm choosing for you, I guess, to send the energy to the conflict in Yemen. It's a very bad conflict, killed, I think, 100,000 or 200,000 people so far. It's threatening a massive famine of possibly affecting 13 million people, mainly children. So it's definitely worthy of our prayer. So it's all focused on that. So just to kind of remind us, what we're going to do is we're going to, first thing is we will affirm that the spiritual aspect within us is in charge of our mind and all of its aspects and our body. That's point one. So I'll lead everyone through this, and then we will, say that again silently. But I would move the mouth. I would make it, like a silent whisper. The masks help. And then, so I'll give you a very short time for that, maybe 30 seconds. And then the confession part, I'm going to give you about 4 minutes, because I know we got plenty of sins to confess. Maybe we should go, but we'll just start with 4 minutes. And again, get emotional on it. And then I'll stop that, and then I'll ask for us to do the next part of invoking the energy. And I'm not doing this. I'm just going to tell you now it's time to do that, and then you do that yourself silently, and then let's all send it out to Yemen. And again, I will not do that. Each individual will do that themselves. And that's it. But I thought it might be good to just get ourselves warmed up by a set prayer and a little bit of mantra. So let's do that first. And the mantra is for, if you've been given the mantra, please use it. If you have not, then don't. Because we observe the rules of mantra in the Aetherius Society. So let's start with this mantra that we've been given the last social Sunday service. Om Mani Padme Hum. Adopt the mudra mantra if you have this. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 and stop. So raise our hands, join together in the blessing and prayer, the first blessing and the prayer. Blessed are they who work for peace. Almighty Father of all creation, let your light flow through this world now. Let it shine into the hearts and minds of men now, so that all may look within and see the glory of thine everlasting being. O Spirit of spirits, let your love flow through the hearts and minds of man now, so that he may look within and see the great and wondrous glory of his divine heritage. Lower the hands. And now let's, any last minute questions before we start this practice? Good. All right. So close our eyes. Remember the words, the emotion, the intensity of our beloved Master. Here we are trying to practice his technique. Let's be honored that he gave this to us and trying to do it the best of our ability. Let's all now start with silent whisper to affirm that the spiritual aspect within us is in charge of our mind and all of its aspects and our body. And now let's commence confessing our sins. I'll give you about just over 4 minutes to do that. Be honest, emotional, and serious. the last 30 seconds. Now let's all can keep our eyes closed, but raise our hands in the prayer mudra, and then most humbly ask Almighty God, in your own way, in your own words, to let its great power flow through you to the situation in Yemen. I'll give you just a minute or so for this. Then bring this prayer to a close, thanking Almighty God for this wondrous power to flow in this way. And for those who've been given the holy mantra, the AUM, let's join together and recite this once. Lower the hands. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just lead us all in the practice of the presence to kind of end the service part. But then for anyone who would like to stay, and anyone who would like to stay online, we can open up to questions, answers, and maybe some feedback of any kind of manifestations or feelings that people had. So let's just finish the service part. Place left hand on the solar plexus, the right hand over the left. And think down to the wondrous goddess Tara and humbly request her violet flame to flow upwards into our feet, through the legs and body upwards into the heart center. And let this great, wondrous power from the Mother Earth fill our heart centers. And then bring down a brilliant white light, the great power of Almighty God, down filling the head and brain centers, vibrant, scintillating white light, down the neck, shoulders into the heart center. Then bring these two great forces together as one and offer them in sacrifice to the golden sphere just above the top of the head. Let it go upwards into this beautiful golden sphere. And then humbly request from this spark of God that its golden rays of spirituality might flow down, filling our hearts, our minds, and our bodies, feeling this great essence of the great God within. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thy will, Almighty God, be done. Thank you all very much. Now, before going into the questions, if there are any, I didn't mention that we're actually making this a two-part, because we figured there's so much in service and prayer. And so the following Sunday will also be on service and prayer, with the inclusion especially of that great mission given to us by our Master, which is Operation Prayer Power. So that will be covered roughly a month from now in part 2 of service and prayer. So, any questions of our captive audience here?
There is a question online currently.
But first, anybody have it? Do you feel that you had any response from it? Was it successful at all? Was it too difficult to do it in a group setting, or how did it work for you? Carol?
I found it was very successful. What I found was in the second portion of it.
The confession portion or the energy flow portion?
No, the energy flow portion. First it was the confession was very intense. And I found that intensity carried on when I was doing the prayer.
Nice.
And I thought, should I be having that emotion? Or how do I control that emotion in that portion of it? Because I'm used to just letting the power flow through me.
Yeah.
But with this, it actually pushed the prayer out a bit more.
Can energize it.
To create this intensity of prayer that was rather emotional. And I didn't know whether I should have that emotion in it, as I'm used to controlling that emotion. But I felt a lot more power flowing through me as well.
I mean, you listen to the Master do his prayers, and there is an element of emotion in it, and I think you can probably use it as a carrier. Obviously, you got to control it.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of the lesson for us, as to how to control that and harness that energy and use it to propel the love.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's good,
Agreed.
very good. Anyone else have any interesting experiences? No. It was a failure for everyone. Karen?
This is one practice that really, every time I do it, I cry. Every time. Because I'm not the brightest light in the chandelier. So, I have a lot of things that need polishing, shall we say.
Don't we all?
So, but it does. It tears me down, and then when I say the part where, nonetheless, would you, in your wonderful compassion and mercy, use me as a channel? And then everything turns white, and I'm ready to go, whatever the prayer I say.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah.
Good, good. Anyone else want to share? Want to share?
We do have a question.
Okay.
And the question was asked by Karine, who's tuning in online. And she said, hello, Brian, can you go over the first step? How do we affirm that a spiritual aspect is in charge and flowing through us?
Good question. I think just do what the Master said and just say it out loud. I now affirm that the spiritual aspect, or my soul, is in charge of my all aspects of my mind and my body. Just say it and believe it. I think that's the way to do it.
Oh, with something like, I'm not this mind and body. Would that work? Just curious.
Well, no, I would do what the Master said. I would say, that's kind of more of a negative, which is good for affirmation, perhaps. But I think in this case, you want to be positive. You want to say, I'm affirming that Almighty God is in charge of my mind and my body, or my soul, or my higher self, or my spiritual aspect is in charge of my of all aspects of my mind and my body. I would be positive.
We do have another question, but Karine actually had a nice experience, and she said the heart center was vibrating, very powerful.
Nice. Did she do it out loud, or was she whispering? Wait for her to type.
She didn't mention. But okay, the other question we have is from Moji.
Mm-hmm.
She said, the confessions part, do you confess the errors and sins of the past day, week, or as far as you can remember? Is it just this lifetime? I'm adding that.
Well, I took it more that you aren't so much confessing individual acts and things, such as you might do in the course of a day, but you're more confessing aspects of you, your selfishness, your ego, your lack of compassion, your I'm not saying you can't do any, you shouldn't do any specifics, but I think I took it more as the quality. We all know our qualities that are lacking. Hone in on those qualities that are lacking, or those qualities that are bad, and we wish they weren't, and we want to, we're embarrassed by them. We wouldn't want to tell people about them because they're so bad. So that now you're confessing this out loud to God. So I took it more to be that, not so much. I didn't say sorry to my wife when I think the Master kind of said not all the small sins, because there have been so many of them. And so you want to focus on the bigger aspects. Did you find that, Carol?
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's
Yeah, like you said,
better.
the qualities.
Yeah, the quality. I mean, not saying if you did something really
The weaknesses.
weaknesses. Yeah.
That kind of thing.
I mean, if you've done something particularly bad, then you could probably focus on that. But we hope that you didn't.
Right. Karine actually answered now, and she says she did it out loud since
good.
she is by herself. And another person who shared...
I think it will work better out loud. Maybe not really super loud, but I think I found it works a little bit better out loud.
Right. Heidi also shared her experience, and she said her hands were tingling after
Nice.
the practice.
Good. Yeah. Well, like the Master said, you feel it physically, and that's a key. That's a key guide for how well you're doing, because you really should be feeling it physically, and you kind of want to adjust it so that you are feeling it physically, and it'll guide you into being more and more powerful, because there should be a physical manifestation of this energy. I mean, it took the Master and flew him around the room, so that's I think one time he said it burned his fingers from the inside. So we may not get quite there, but you want to at least feel something. Any more online? That's it for the line. Anything more here? All right. Well, if it might be worthwhile, because I think it really is it's a wonderful practice, and it is difficult. I find it difficult, and I think sometimes they're better, sometimes they're not. And so, if I could, presume to give you some homework, maybe you could kind of work on it for the next month, and maybe we kind of start or have a little bit of time on our next Sunday in a month's time, and kind of go over it a bit, because I really think it's worthwhile, and I think it's an underused practice. So it has been certainly underused by me, and now that I'm using it more, I really am impressed with it. We really can be dumb, can't we? It's this great practice he gave us, but so I really am kind of feeling like we want to encourage it. Yeah. I can't. What do you say?
No.
No. Oh, dangerous. Well, thank you all very much for joining us, and get out there and send out the light, because that's our job. God bless each and every one of you.